This 2-hour block of Revisewise programmes is about English, except for the first programme, which provides an introduction to all the Key Stage 2 national tests. That's followed by an introduction to the English test papers. After that, it covers finding facts from fiction texts, getting the meaning from fiction texts, finding facts from factual texts, improving the grammar and style of your writing, punctuation and spelling. The starting time of each programme is shown in the menu, so they can be found using the clock in the top right-hand corner of the screen. First, here's the introduction to all the Key Stage 2 national tests.
And welcome to Revisewise. I'm Lindsay Fallow.
I'm Simeon Corty.
And I'm Simon Davis.
And we're here to help you make the most of what you know when you come to do your Key Stage 2 tests in May.
In these programmes, as well as in our books and on the internet, we're looking at all the English, maths and science that you might need help with.
We'll look at questions from previous tests and give you lots of hints to help you improve your marks.
There are 3 subjects in the tests, and I'll be helping you with your English.
I'll be helping you with your maths.
And I'll be helping you with your science.
The Key Stage 2 national tests are exactly that. They're national. Year 6 pupils all over England sit down to exactly the same test on the same day. That's over 500,000 of you.
The questions you'll get aren't set by your teacher. They're written by government experts who want to find out what you know. So nobody in your school knows what the questions are going to be until the day of the test.
And when is that? Well, the tests all happen during 1 week in May, with 2 or 3 tests each day spread through the week. Now, pupils who miss a test for any reason can't take it at any other time and won't get any marks. So it's really important not to get ill or go on holiday during the test week. Your school gets a timetable like this, well ahead of the time, so everyone knows when each test takes place. So what actually happens on the day of the test? Preparations start well before the pupils arrive. The teacher has to cover any displays on the classroom wall that could help with the answers. Next, the tables and chairs are moved so pupils can't see each other's work. The test papers are sent out to the schools a few weeks before the test day. They must be kept locked away until an hour before the test is due to start. It's time for their first test, and this Year 6 class is let into its classroom.
Right, sit down quietly.
The head teacher brings in the test papers in their sealed bags.
Don't open it, but on the front you can write your first name, last name, and then the school, which I've written on the blackboard for you. So take one each and then pass them on. Okay. You are not allowed to talk to other people in the room when you're doing this test. All the work in the booklet must be your own work, so you're not allowed to copy someone else's work. For this paper, you will have 45 minutes. Right, you may open to question 1 and begin.
Once the test starts, it's all down to them.
And when you do your test, it'll be up to you. What do some Year 6 pupils who've already done their tests think of them?
The first test I was very nervous, but as it went along I thought it was quite easy. I felt a bit nervous that I wouldn't do very well, but when I got started, then I was all right and I paced myself.
I felt very nervous, but when I got into it, then I was better.
The first test I had, I felt really nervous, but then once I got started, it was okay.
At first, I thought it was going to be hard, but when I got into it, it was easy.
Some of them are easy and some of them are hard, but either way, you might get them all right.
I got stuck on some questions, but then I figured them out, so it was quite easy in the end.
If they know well enough in advance, the school can get copies of the test papers in special large print, like this, or in Braille, like this.
And most of the written test papers last about 45 minutes. That's 3/4 of an hour.
Right, can everyone now stop writing, put your pencils down.
At the end of each test, the finished papers are taken away and kept in a safe place, like the head teacher's office, ready to be posted off to be marked.
So, there they are.
Your papers aren't marked by your teachers, but they're sent off to other teachers somewhere else in the country who don't know you or your school. That's important to know because they can only tell what you know from what you write down on your test paper.
What will you find in the test papers themselves? Well, to start with, no one is trying to trick you. The questions you'll get will all be about things you've done at school.
And you only have to get just over half the questions right, and you'll get a level 4, which is what everyone's hoping you'll get at the end of primary school.
So, first, the English test. Altogether, there are 4 English papers spread through the week of the test. There's a reading test, a writing test, a short spelling test, and a handwriting test. The one which gives you the most marks is the reading test. You can get up to 50 marks for it. In the reading test, you're given a booklet to read, and then you answer questions about it in an answer booklet. Then there's a writing test, which is worth 35 marks. In the writing test, there are 4 subjects to choose from, and you have to write about one of them. Next, there's a short spelling test, where you can get up to 10 marks.
Today, most people travel
In the
by
spelling
car.
test, your teacher reads a paragraph of text out loud, and you have to fill in the missing words in your booklet, spelled correctly. Finally, there's a short handwriting test for 5 marks. For this, you copy out a paragraph of text in your best handwriting. Altogether, the most you can get is 100 marks, though you only need to get just over half that to get your level 4. Your marks from the 4 papers are all added up, so even if you do badly in one paper, you could do well on the others and still get a level 4. In later programmes, we'll go through the things you need to know to do well in all these English tests.
Altogether, there are 3 maths papers. There's a short mental maths test and 2 written papers called Paper A and Paper B. In Paper B, you can use a calculator. In Paper A, you can't. And the 2 written papers are worth about 40 marks each. There are about 20 questions in each paper, and they cover all the maths that you've been taught at school. The 3rd test is a short mental maths test worth 20 marks. Now, in the mental maths test, the questions are played from a tape. You work out the answers in your head and write them down on the answer sheet. Adding up the 3 maths papers, the most you can get is 100 marks, though just over half of that will get you your level 4. In later programmes, we look at lots of past questions and go over the maths you need to know to do well.
For science, you have just 2 tests, Paper A and Paper B. They're worth about 40 marks each, so your top mark is around 80, with just over half the marks giving you a level 4. In both the papers, you're asked questions about all the different parts of science you've done at school. And to help you, we'll go through the sort of questions you might get and the science you need to know in later programmes.
So, what can you do to prepare for your tests?
Well, the first thing is don't panic. There's plenty of time and there's nothing in the test that you haven't already done at school.
And that's where your teachers come in. As the test week approaches, they'll go over all the things that you need to know and help you catch up with anything that you're not sure of.
What would the answer be?
This is a maths revision class a few days before the test day.
Smaller. So is my answer going to be bigger than 36 or smaller?
Bigger.
Bigger.
Yeah, because 0.9 is smaller than
0.9 is smaller than the others.
Your school will probably give you some past questions to do.
This English class are having a practice run at doing a complete test, using papers from a previous year.
In the weeks before the test, try to get a few early nights and plenty of sleep. Healthy food will help you concentrate, and however nervous you are on the morning of the test, try and have some breakfast.
There are things you can do at home as well. For English, you can think about the books you're reading, about the characters and if you liked them and why. You'll also find lots of factual writing around the house, like leaflets, labels, instructions, adverts and recipes.
You can try out your maths too. Going shopping offers plenty of chances to try out your mental maths.
Mine's 49p.
Mine's 55p.
And that makes
£1.04p.
Do you think you can work out from this, Emma?
Working through a mail order catalogue is a good test of interpreting data.
Age and years, and my age is 11, so I get the 11 grid, and from this I could work out that my height would be 146 centimetres.
There are lots of examples of measures that you can look out for, like weight, capacity and area.
And what can you do for science around the house? Well, you can look at the properties of materials and work out why they're used for different things. You can see how materials change their state by melting, freezing or evaporating. And you can look at plant life in the garden and study how your pets live.
How can parents help? Well, they shouldn't panic either. The teachers and the pupils will have done all the work at school. But these are some of the ways that parents can help out.
What did you do there, Emma, on this table?
Mrs. Hardman and her daughter Emma prepared for the tests by working through some revision books at home.
Like, which lesson does 6B have between 11:30 and 12:30? So you look at the 6B column and go down to 11:30 to 12, which is French. So you put French in the answer box.
What order of rotation does this shape have?
Keely and her mother used a revision CD-ROM on their home computer.
What order of rotation does this shape have? What order of rotation does this shape have?
And what advice do Year 6 pupils who've already done their test have to give?
Think about the question and just don't worry about it, just put your answer down.
Revise a lot and always listen to the teachers, because if you don't, you might miss something important that's on a test.
Revise as much as you can for science and maths. Read lots of books and go through the spelling rules with your teachers and parents and get as much help as you can.
Have confidence in yourself, because if you don't have confidence in yourself, you'll never get anywhere.
Of course, for all three subjects, English, Maths and Science, you can get lots of help from us in these Revisewise TV programmes.
In English, we'll help you get through all the different test papers. With the help of our team of puzzling pupils, we explain how to tackle the reading paper and the different kinds of questions you'll be asked. And we'll brush up your grammar, spelling and punctuation.
You only have to open your mouth.
And we're there.
In fact, we're there before you open your mouth.
There's also advice from our English team.
Once you finish writing your letter, don't forget to sign it.
In the maths programmes, we'll go through all the maths you need to know. We use simple graphics to explain the basics of fractions and check out how to add, subtract, multiply and divide accurately. We also look at how to solve maths problems. And finally, we'll go over ways of helping your mental maths. There's also advice from our expert maths team.
To find the answer to 59 at 43, I'd turn the 59 to a 60, then at the end take away 1, and the answer would be 102.
In the science programmes, we'll go over all the key bits of science you need to know. We look at living things in their environment and how plants grow and reproduce. We look carefully at the properties of different materials. Finally, it's light, sound and the earth and beyond, with our expert science team helping to make sense of it all.
We found out that seeds didn't need light, they can germinate in the dark. Seeds need water but not too much to germinate. The seeds without water never germinated and the seeds with too much water never germinated either.
That's the end of our first Revisewise programme. And don't forget, you can always wind the tape back to go over things again.
And there are also books on our interactive Revisewise website to help you as well.
How you do in your test depends on you, but one thing's for sure, if you prepare well, you'll do well.
The next programme introduces you to the English tests.
Hello, I'm here to help our puzzling pupil and you make the most of what you know when you do your Key Stage 2 English tests. In each of these programmes, as well as in our books, audio tapes and on the internet, we're looking at the bits of English that you might find a bit tricky. So, first of all, what's the problem?
It's my English test and I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do.
Right, let's have a look. The reading test. The reading test is just one of 4 English tests that all you Year 6s will be doing in May. Now, these tests aren't to trick you, they're just there to find out what you know. The first and most important test you'll do is the reading test. Here, you're given a reading booklet and an answer booklet. You can get up to 50 marks for the reading test. The other big test you get is a writing test with planning sheets to make lots of notes and a writing booklet. You get up to 35 marks for the writing test. Next, you get a couple of short tests. There's a spelling test where you fill in missing words, spelled correctly. You get up to 10 marks for the spelling test. And there's a handwriting test where you use your best handwriting to copy a short printed paragraph. You get up to 5 marks for the handwriting test. The marks from all 4 tests are then added up. If you get just over half marks, that should give you a level 4, which is what everyone is hoping you'll get at the end of primary school. Of course, how you get on in your tests is up to you, but one thing is certain, if you've prepared well, then you'll do well. And that's what we're here to help you with. So, what happens on the day of the test?
Year 6 pupils from all over England sit down to the same tests on the same days. The test days start early for your teachers. On the morning of the test, they take down any pictures or posters that might help you with your tests. Then they have to rearrange the room, separating out the desks so you can't see each other's work. Then you arrive. Once you're settled in your seats, the test can begin. This is the reading test, the first test you'll be given.
The reading test is really important because you can get the most marks on it. Here is an actual reading booklet, thanks. Inside, you'll find a range of texts, such as a story or poem, an interview or some letters, or perhaps a biography or a report. Of course, the reading booklet is different each year, but whatever's in there, you'll have done something like it in class. We'll be looking at all these different kinds of texts in later programmes.
So I've got my reading booklet, but I can't find any questions to answer.
Ah, you wouldn't. But don't worry, this isn't a trick. You have 15 minutes to read your reading booklet before you're given another booklet, and that has all the questions and spaces for the answers. This is what happens.
In front of you, you have a reading booklet.
This is the reading test. For this, you're first given a reading booklet. Then your teacher will read out the first set of instructions.
For the first part of the test, you have 15 minutes to read through the reading booklet thoroughly.
If you finish the reading booklet, remember, go back and read it through again. Don't waste any time.
Of course, if you do have time, there's no harm reading through the booklet again. You might have missed something.
But what if I find a word I don't know? I don't have a dictionary.
No, you can't have a dictionary in the reading test. But our English team have come up with some suggestions.
If I didn't have a dictionary, I'd look at the words around the word and see what made sense in between the words.
Read the sentence and if you think about it, what word could go in the space that you missed out?
Yeah, try and fix it all together.
And emphasise it, like speak out and try to really like work out what the word is.
So, here's the question and answer booklet to go with your reading booklet.
Thanks.
When you open your answer booklet, what sort of questions will you find? First, multiple choice questions like these. You have a choice of 4 answers, but only one is right. Once you've found the right answer in the reading booklet, you put a ring round it. Don't worry if you change your mind. Just cross through the first answer and ring the new one. Some questions want short answers, like a word or a phrase. Here's one, and the hint is you only have one line to write on. Some questions want more words or a sentence or two. They give you several lines to write on. Some questions want longer answers, like this, where you can give a more detailed answer. Try to write several sentences and fill as much of the space as you can. Whatever space you're given for your answer, try to write something, even if you have to guess. Empty spaces don't give you any marks.
How do I know what marks I get for each question?
You see those numbers there? They tell you how many marks you can get for each question. So this single word answer is worth 1 mark, this 2-line answer is worth 2 marks, and this longer answer, 3 marks.
Once 15 minutes are up, you're given the answer booklet and further instructions. Don't forget to listen very carefully. You'll be given some very helpful advice.
If you can't answer a question, just go on to the next one and come back to it afterwards if you've got time.
During the test, you can ask your teachers for help, but unfortunately, they can't actually help you find the answers to your questions. You have to work those out for yourselves.
15 minutes have passed. You've got another 30 minutes.
Throughout the test, your teacher will call out how long you have left to do it. Listen out for this, as it can help you pace yourself.
2 more minutes. If you've finished, please check what you've done.
Anything else you want to know? Some more advice from our English team.
First of all, preparing for your test.
Read every day for 20 minutes so you get an idea of how it's going to be. Read a hard text, read non-narrative text, and read stories that you can get hold of. Ask a parent or a teacher to help you if you get stuck on a word.
And during your test.
I was given some advice that if you didn't know a question or couldn't do it, leave it out and then come back to it later if you have time.
You have to pace yourself and time yourself in your head and follow the answers with your fingers so you know where you're up to.
Yeah, and read the question properly twice, and if you finish before the time, read it again to make sure you don't have any mistakes.
There'll be more about how to tackle your reading test in later programmes. Now, on to the other main English test, the writing test. Have a look at this. It's what you get at the start of the writing test.
Oh, yes. So I have to write a story in a piece of factual writing?
Well, not quite. You actually have a choice. Have a look at this. First of all, there are the instructions. See where it says you must choose one piece of writing from 4 in this booklet. That's a choice of 2 non-narrative options and 2 narrative short stories. The non-narrative options could be writing a letter, a leaflet, instructions, an interview, a news report, or even a newsletter. Your paper could have any of these. But whatever the options, you only have to do one piece of writing.
So I could just write a story?
Yes, or you could choose one of the non-narrative options. You don't have to make up your mind from the titles on the front page. There's lots of information inside the booklet.
Look at all the help you're given here to write a letter. This is the planning sheet, where you can make notes.
Even the story questions provide you with clues on what to think about and what the setting for your story could be. It's really important to look through all the booklet before you decide which piece of writing to do. How did our English team decide which piece to choose?
I didn't know what to choose between non-narrative and narrative, but because I was quite weak in non-narrative, I chose to do narrative, so I'll get a better result.
I done the non-narrative because I thought it was quite interesting about the facts, and it was really fun and exciting.
I chose the narrative because that's my strength, and I've had more practice on that.
I also wrote a narrative story because I have the ability to write narrative much better than non-narrative. I had my facts straight in my head, so I knew what I was going to do.
I chose to do the question about the sea world because I thought it would be nice to do something factual and something that would be nice and not too complicated.
I chose to do spider supporters because it's really easy to do an argumentative writing, and it's much more easy because you can just throw a load of different words in that are really argumentative and make whoever's reading it feel like really small if they don't like spiders or something.
For the first 15 minutes, just think about what to write and make notes. Make the most of it. Write down any information you need to include or ideas for characters and settings. We'll be looking in a lot more detail at planning your writing in later programmes.
Once the 15 minutes are up, then what happens?
Then you'll be given the writing booklet. This has 3 pages of lined paper to write your story on. You'll then have 45 minutes to write your story. Don't forget to leave time to write your ending and check your punctuation. Good punctuation makes your writing make sense and gives you marks. There's more about punctuation in a later programme.
What about spelling? Will I lose marks if I misspell something?
No, you don't lose marks for wrong spelling in the writing test because your spelling will be tested in a separate spelling test. In fact, you can even use a dictionary in the writing test if you want to, in case you think of a really good word but want to check what it means. Now, some more advice from the English team.
Think of ideas that might be good and think of some nice characters and describe them well.
And think of how your plan's going to be. Think about what kind of story is going to come up in the test and really study hard.
You can do spider diagrams of the characters.
Yeah.
And do a rough description of the setting.
And try and make a conclusion or a twist to the story, or a resolution to end the story really well.
We'll get back to the writing test in more detail in later programmes.
You mentioned the spelling and handwriting test. What are they like?
Well, for a start, they're very short. This is a spelling test. You can get up to 10 marks for this. Now, you see these blank spaces?
So do I just fill in the blanks?
Well, not straight away. This is what happens.
Inside the booklet, there is a text with some missing words.
First of all, you listen as your teacher reads through the passage you've been given, including the missing words.
Usually of the backs of houses or factories.
Then it's your turn. Your teacher slowly reads the passage again, giving you time to fill in the missing words.
Leaves the town. It passes through some very beautiful countryside.
There's a whole programme on spelling later in the series. So, what's left?
Handwriting.
The handwriting test. You need to concentrate hard for this one. On the back of your spelling test, there's a short passage with several blank lines underneath. You have to write out the passage onto those blank lines in your best handwriting, joining up the letters if you can.
The handwriting test only takes 5 minutes and you can get 5 marks for it.
That looks okay. There's nothing to prepare for.
Well, you could practice. It doesn't take long and it would make a big difference. Just 5 minutes a few times a week. Let's check what we've done. We saw that there are 4 separate English tests. We looked at the different types of questions you'll be asked in the reading test. We saw that you only need to write 1 piece in the writing test, and we saw what happens in the spelling test and the handwriting test. Now you can go over all this at home by winding the tape back and looking at bits of the programme again. There are also books and our interactive Revisewise website to help you prepare for your test. So, we'll let you get on with your test and you get on with your revision.
The next programme is about finding facts from fiction texts.
Hello, I'm here to help our puzzling pupil and you make the most of what you know when you do your Key Stage 2 English tests. In each of these programmes, and in our books, audio tapes and on the internet, we're looking at the bits of English that you might find a bit tricky. Today, it's finding fact from fiction. So what's the problem?
I'm a bit stuck on this question in the reading test.
All right, let's have a look. Aha! Multiple choice. Let me remind you what you have to do. For multiple choice questions, you get 4 possible answers. You have to read the story carefully and pick the right one. OK, so read us the question.
Clara was in bed when her mother, Lottie, came to wake her up, talk to her, give her a present or tell her off.
OK, so to answer this, we need to go back to the reading booklet. Here we are. Clara, Clara, are you asleep? May I come in? I'm not asleep, Clara said. Aha! Clara's not asleep, so Lottie can't wake her up. It's difficult. I keep thinking about tomorrow. Lottie sat down at the foot of her daughter's bed. Clara could see how tired she looked, even though the only light in the room came from the corridor. It's about tomorrow that I want to talk to you, Clara.
Lottie sighed.
So what's the answer?
Well, it's not wake her up, and there was no mention of a present or Clara being told off. But Lottie does say I want to talk to you, so that must be it.
Exactly. So put a ring round that answer. These questions are about finding facts. They're not asking you what you think, so the answers will always be in the story. Here's an extract from a story by Roald Dahl called Boy. Listen to the words carefully, and we'll have some multiple choice questions about it afterwards.
It was my first term, and I was walking home alone across the village green after school, when suddenly one of the senior 12-year-old boys came riding full speed down the road on his bicycle, about 20 yards away from me. The road was on a hill, and the boy was going down the slope. And as he flashed by, he started backpedaling very quickly so that the freewheeling mechanism of his bike made a loud whirring sound. At the same time, he took his hands off the handlebars and folded them casually across his chest. I stopped dead and stared after him. How wonderful he was. How swift and brave and graceful in his long trousers with bicycle clips around them and his scarlet school cap at a jaunty angle on his head. One day, I told myself, one glorious day, I will have a bike like that, and I will wear long trousers with bicycle clips, and my school cap will sit jaunty on my head, and I will go whizzing down the hill, pedaling backwards with no hands on the handlebars. I promise you that if somebody had caught me by the shoulder at that moment and said to me, "What is your greatest wish in life, little boy? What is your absolute ambition? To be a doctor, a fine musician, a painter, a writer, or the Lord Chancellor?" I would have answered without hesitation that my only ambition, my hope, my longing was to have a bike like that and to go whizzing down the hill with no hands on the handlebars. It would be fabulous. It made me tremble just to think about it.
OK, so here's a multiple choice question about this story. The author was walking home alone across the road, down the hill, across the village green, or down the slope. See how our English team deal with this question.
Let's look at question 1. The author was walking home alone. Was he walking across the road, down the hill, across the village green, or down the slope?
It was my first term, and I was walking home alone across the village green after school, when suddenly one of the senior 12-year-old boys came riding full speed down the road on his bicycle, about 20 yards away from me.
Down the slope.
Down the slope. It does mention down the slope in the story, doesn't it? That isn't the right answer.
That's right. Even if you think you can remember the answer, always go back and check. Here's the extract again.
It was my first term, and I was walking home alone across the village green after school.
Across the village green.
OK, so what do you do?
We circle the right answer.
Good. Would you all circle the right answer?
Here's the next question. As the 12-year-old boy was on the slope, he rode backwards up the hill, stopped dead, made a loud whirring sound, or started backpedaling. You know the answer is in the story, so let's read on.
The road was on a hill, and the boy was going down the slope. And as he flashed by, he started backpedaling very quickly so that the freewheeling mechanism of his bike made a loud whirring sound.
David, what do you think he did?
Made a loud whirring sound.
And as he flashed by, he started backpedaling very quickly so that the freewheeling mechanism of his bike made a loud whirring sound.
It does mention made a loud whirring sound in the story, but what made the loud whirring sound?
The bicycle.
The bicycle.
That's an easy mistake to make. Sometimes the wrong answer is in the story as well, so you need to check exactly what the question is asking. So, what was the boy doing?
Started backpedaling.
So, multiple choice questions follow the order of the story.
And?
The answers are in the story.
But what do you have to watch out for?
There will be some wrong choices in the story too, so I have to check the questions and the story and not rely on my memory.
That's it. Great. Let's look at some short answer questions. They're still asking for facts from the story.
I need to find words or phrase for these, don't I? But if I have to read the whole story again, it'll take ages.
Don't worry, no it won't. Look at the question.
On pages 8 and 9, find and copy 3 of the words or phrases which show that the train and platform were crowded.
So, can you see the clue about where the answer might be?
On pages 8 and 9.
Exactly. And now you know what you're looking for, it'll really speed things up. You can just skim read. Skim reading is really useful, but what is it?
Skim reading is when we read fast until we find the point where we want to read in careful detail.
Now let's put skim reading to the test with this question on boy. Find 3 adjectives on page 1 which the writer uses to describe the boy.
Which part of the page will you need to look at carefully to find the answer to that? I'm going to ask Adam.
There where he describes the boy on the bike.
You need to find the part where he describes the boy on the bike. So you're going to skim through the page until you come to that part.
Now, here's the text from boy. Why don't you skim read this until you've found the description of the boy? We'll leave the question up on the screen to help you remember what you're looking for.
Did you find it?
Here's the question again. Find 3 adjectives on page 1 which the writer uses to describe the boy.
Is wonderful. Brave. Swift.
Notice that the answers are not complete sentences, and that's perfectly okay for a short answer.
That's right. No need to write out sentences when a few words will get you your marks.
Could anyone find any more?
Graceful.
So, did you find the adjectives? Here they are. Wonderful, swift, brave, and graceful. Any 3 of these would get you your marks. Here's the next question. This has 2 clues to help you know where to look. Can you spot them? Find 3 things on page 1 the writer told himself he would do one day, one glorious day. Let's see what the team makes of it.
What are those little marks around one glorious day? Adam, can you tell me?
They're quotation marks.
They're quotation marks. And what does that mean, Adam?
Those words have come from the story.
Those words are actually in the story. So how does that help you to find the answer to number 8, Adam?
It helps us because then we can try and look for one glorious day and then follow on from then.
That's right. Quotation marks are a great clue. You know that the actual words inside the quotation marks will be in the story. While the English team skim read, you watch the clip again and listen out for one day, one glorious day.
I stopped dead and stared after him. How wonderful he was. How swift and brave and graceful in his long trousers with bicycle clips around them and his scarlet school cap at a jaunty angle on his head. One day, I told myself, one glorious day, I will have a bike like that, and I will wear long trousers with bicycle clips, and my school cap will sit jaunty on my head, and I will go whizzing down the hill, pedalling backwards with no hands on the handlebars.
The English team found it.
He will have a bike like the other boy.
Amanda, could you give me another thing the author was going to do?
He will wear long trousers with bicycle clips. And he will wear his school cap, and his school cap will sit jointy on his head.
Are there any more things in the passage which the author was going to do one glorious day.
And he will go whizzing down the hill, pedalling backwards, with no hands on the handlebars.
There were some good ideas there, especially skim reading.
That will really speed me up. I can quickly read just the pages mentioned in the question and then read carefully when I get to the bit I want.
And anything else?
I always need to read the question carefully, looking for clues and double-checking what it's asking me to do.
That's right. Write phrases if it asks for phrases, and write words if it asks for words.
No problem.
Well, that's the end of our programme on finding facts from fiction. So, let's check what we've done. With multiple choice questions, don't rely on your memory. Go back to the story to find the answer. Wrong choices might appear in the story, so check what the question asks. The questions usually follow the order of the story, so you don't have to read the whole story for each question. For short answer questions, which ask you to pick out words and phrases, read the question carefully and look for clues like page numbers and quotations that will help you find where the answer is. Skim read to find the important bit, then read carefully. Check what the question is asking you. And don't waste time copying great chunks from the story when you only need to write a few words. Now you can go over all this at home by winding the tape back and looking at bits of the programme again. There are also books and our interactive Revisewise website to help you prepare for your test. So, we'll let you get on with your test and you get on with your revision.
The next programme is about getting the meaning from fiction texts.
To help you with your Key Stage 2 English test, we're looking at questions in the reading test where you need to get the meaning from a fiction text. So, what's the problem?
I'm a bit stuck on this question. Explain how you think Clara feels the night before she leaves, on the train, when she gets to Holland.
So you need to work out how Clara feels. Clara is the main character in a story which is set in the Second World War, called Leaving Home. She and her younger brother have to flee their home and parents in Germany for the safety of Britain.
But I've read the story in the reading booklet, and it doesn't tell me how she feels. So how am I supposed to know?
This question is asking you how you think the girl in the story is feeling. For this type of question, you need to look for clues in the story, then work out the answer. Questions like this usually start in similar ways, with words like, how do you know? Why do you think? Explain why. And they'll often ask you about the characters. You can learn a lot about characters, how they feel, what they're thinking, by what they say and do. You just have to pick up the clues. Think about the characters you watch on TV, like those in EastEnders.
Morning.
Shouldn't you be at the shop?
No, Louise is opening up. Got us all a coffee.
Well, I'd appreciate it if you got a move on.
You can't wait, can you?
How do you mean?
Get me on my own behind those shelves.
We've got a delivery due any minute.
Yeah, of course you have.
But we're nearly out of tinfoil and batteries.
I was joking.
All right.
Don't worry, I won't let anything interfere with my work. It's your coffee, boss.
Watching that, you know what sort of people they are by what they say and what they do. Here's the English team talking about some of them.
I think Peggy is a caring mother and always gives everyone a chance, because when Grant pushed Tiffany down the stairs, she didn't believe what everyone else said. She went to him to ask him before believing all the gossip.
You like these, don't we?
Oh, you big kid. You couldn't wait, could you?
Sorry.
No, that's all right. for today. Let's try and forget this mess, shall we?
Yeah, right.
Come on, please try. Even if it's only for Courtney's sake.
I think Grant Mitchell is bad-tempered, aggressive and cruel. He's aggressive and cruel because of the way he treated Tiffany, like by pushing her down the stairs. He's bad-tempered because he's always jumping to conclusions and getting annoyed, and this leads to aggression.
You're still my wife, and she's still my daughter.
Get your hands off me!
Not until we've talked about it properly!
You have to kill me!
Matthew is a nervous character, anxious and confused, and he doesn't know what to do about Saskia's murder. He panicked when the police found out about the murder.
You cannot sort this out, all right? How can you sort this out?
You just leave that to me.
She's dead, Steve. She's not coming back. This is the end for her.
I think Steve is sly, cruel and secretive, like when he murdered Saskia and kept it from everybody. And I don't really think he thinks about other people.
If I go down, I'm taking you with me.
Any clearer now?
I'm still not really sure that I get it.
Well, look, if your story said that Clara was rushing around, packing her case, laughing and joking with everyone on the night before she got the train, how would you think she felt?
Excited, happy, looking forward to going.
Right, but did I say she was excited or happy or looking forward to going?
No.
So how did you know?
Well, it's obvious. Clara would only be acting like that if she was happy.
Right. So the way that Clara was acting was the clue as to how she was feeling. Here are a couple of clips from a story called Teamwork. How do you think Dave is feeling in each of them? And how do you know? And this is Dave. Here's what the English team thought.
When he won the football match, he was like real happy because he wanted to mess around and he wanted to show off to others.
How did you know he was happy?
Because he was jumping around and shouting, "We won."
He was just scoring and laughing a lot and smiling.
And then he was really happy, jumping around, chanting and laughing.
He was hugging his friend when they won, and then the whistle blew and he's running around like a clown.
Like jumping around together and teasing other people, like just like joking with other people.
He was saying that we're the best on the pitch. There's no one else who could beat us.
Was he saying that nastily?
No, just like a joke.
He was kicking his body around and chanting that we won, and dancing about, and like he was showing off.
What about this next clip?
Well
done, lads. Great performance. I'm very proud of you. And Harrison, that last goal. Excellent.
Thanks, Stordy.
I don't know what the team would do without you, Harrison.
Well.
Right, lads, get changed. Well done.
Don't know what the team would do without you, Harrison.
Why don't we just stay at home and let Harrison play all the positions himself? So, how does it feel to be the star of the team?
What are you on about?
Very balding was going on. Mind you, it was a good goal.
Well, look who scored it.
Oh, yeah.
Right. See you later.
See you, sir.
Hang on, Dave. Hold this a sec. Go on. What goal we scored today?
I thought you did it all by yourself.
What? Is that what you're storming off? Because Balding all impressed me, and not you.
I set you up.
Yeah, well, I scored the goal.
I think I better cross the road before your thumping big head knocks me over.
How does Dave feel now?
He felt left out because his face wasn't all happy and glorious. It was all like it was really upset and really like tearful, like he was going to cry because he was left out and no one cared for him. That he did pass the ball to his best friend that's going to make the goal.
His eyebrows went down and he was like walking slowly. He sat down slowly and he started thinking, and he didn't look at his friend when he started talking.
And when he was walking, his shoulders are all down and his eyes are all like down and really sad and gloomy.
He was like a coat hanger, like coat hanging,
Right, yes, good.
coat hanging on the peg, and the arms and the coat goes down on the floor. He was like that.
Working out how characters feel is easy when you can hear them speaking, watch their actions, and look at their facial expressions on TV or in a film. It's more difficult, though, when you only have the printed words on the page. However, writers do give you the clues. See this sentence. When Tom opened the letter, his face went pale and his hand shook. It doesn't tell you how Tom was feeling, but you can work it out. Here's the English team.
He didn't have such a bad look on his face. When he opened the letter, he was like really worried what something happened, and he started shaking his head.
He went worried. What told you he went worried?
His face went pale.
It's like he just read a letter, which it was shocking, and it was a bit surprised, and his face went all pale, like he was going to be sick, and his hand shook, like he read something terrifying.
So, the clues in that sentence were that Tom's face was pale and his hands were shaking. Just how you'd be if you were in shock. Here's another one. Didn't hurt, said the boy defiantly. Tears came to his eyes as he ran away.
It did hurt him, but he's trying to cover it up and say that it never. He tried to make the person who hurt him, make him think that it didn't hurt him at all, so he just saying in a kind of funny way.
Why do you think he ran away?
So he must have run away to hide his tears.
If he runs away, then he could hide and cry.
So, the first clue in this sentence was the word defiantly, which means boldly and aggressively. It describes how the boy said, didn't hurt. The other main clues were that tears came to his eyes and he ran away. In other words, the boy wanted to pretend that he wasn't hurt, so to hide his tears, he ran away. In questions which ask you to get the meaning from the text, you'll notice that there are several lines to write your answers on, like this. So you have to write a longer answer. 1 or 2 words are not enough. That's because you have to write an explanation of how you know how the character is feeling, as well as writing a description of how they feel.
I've got loads of lines to answer my question.
That's plenty of room for an explanation, but don't worry, try this one first. The little girl looked around at the crowded shop. She clung to her mother's skirt and closed her eyes tightly. Now, how do you think that little girl's feeling?
Frightened, nervous.
Yes, but why do you think that?
She clung to her mother's skirt so that they wouldn't be separated. And by closing her eyes, she could pretend that she wasn't there.
That's great. So what would you write down?
The little girl was feeling frightened and nervous because in the text it says that she clung to her mother's skirt.
And?
She closed her eyes to pretend that she wasn't there.
Exactly. So it's all about looking for clues in the text and explaining your answer. Do you know what you have to do now, then?
Yeah, I need to look for clues in what the characters say and do in the story and look at the words which the writer uses.
OK, so let's look again at the first part of your question.
Explain how you think Clara feels the night before she leaves.
Right.
So, I have to look in the story for things she says and does that might give me a clue.
OK, so let's have a look then. What can you see?
Here it is. I'm not crying, she whispered aloud. I'm not. She sat up in bed and rubbed her face with a corner of the quilt.
So, what does that tell you?
Well, she says she's not crying, but she rubs her face with the quilt. So she is crying. So I reckon that she's trying to be brave and not give away how upset she is.
Great, that's a good start. I think I'll leave you to get on with the rest. That's the end of our programme about getting the meaning from the fiction text. These sorts of questions often ask you, how do you know? Why do you think? Or explain why. We saw that you won't find the exact answer in the story, but you will find clues. And from the clues, you can work out the answers. We also learned that it's important to use the text to explain what you think. When you're reading any story, think about how a writer has shown you how a character feels or reveals their personality. Think about how they give you the meaning. And don't forget, you can always wind the tape back and look at bits of the programme again. There are also our books and our interactive Revisewise website to help you make the most of what you know when you're preparing for your test.
The next programme is about finding facts from factual texts.
To help you with your Key Stage 2 English test, in this programme we're going to look at questions in the reading test which ask you to find facts from factual texts. Remember, your reading paper contains questions on fiction and factual texts. Have you found the factual texts in your reading booklet?
Yes, they're all about spiders.
Spiders, so a scientific text.
One bit tells you about spiders and their webs, but there are also some old adverts and a biography.
Yeah, there'll be a range of factual texts in the reading booklet. There might be letters, an interview, a newspaper report or a historical text. Whatever there is, you'll have done something like it before. So what kind of question are you trying to do?
Multiple choice. I know that only one of the answers is right, but I can't remember which one.
OK, read the question out then.
On pages 4 and 5, you can find out how a garden spider spins a web. It takes the spider about 1 day, 1,000 minutes, 1 hour, or 3 hours. But I don't know anything about spiders.
Well, that's OK. The answer will always be in the text you're given. And you can go back to the reading booklet, so you don't need to remember the answer.
It'll take me ages to read all through the booklet again.
Well, you don't need to read it all again. Did you notice the clues in the question that tell you where the answers are?
Oh. Pages 4 and 5.
Yes, so now you know where to look for the answer. What can you do to speed up trying to find it?
Skim read?
Exactly, so go on. To speed up finding answers to questions that ask for facts, always check the question for clues to where the answer might be, and then skim read. That means read quickly through the text until you find the bit you want, and then read carefully. Did you find it?
I think so. Is it... It takes a spider about 1 hour to spin an orb web.
That's right. So now you can ring the right answer. Did you find the rest of those multiple choice questions okay?
Yes, but I'm a bit stuck on this question now.
OK, read it out then.
Write down 2 facts from the text which show that spider's silk is very strong.
OK. Well, this question is still asking for facts, like the multiple choice question, so you'll still find the answer in the text. You don't have to use your memory, give an opinion, or say why you think something might have happened. I'm sure you've answered this type of question lots of times before. A good way to remember how to answer this type of question is to practice. Have a look at this film about the moon. Afterwards, there'll be some questions on it.
In 1969, Apollo 11 was sent on its mission to land the first man on the moon. 3 astronauts were sent on that historic journey.
Petcom going off. And my Petcom going off, sir. It's been a nice, smooth countdown, sir. Thank you, babe.
9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
On their journey to the moon, they had the strange experience of being weightless because there's no gravity in space. People and anything that's not securely tied down floats around. Weightlessness did come in handy when they were trying to move heavy objects around, but it did have its problems, particularly when it came to eating and drinking. Without the effect of gravity, water doesn't pour, it just floats about in a globule, making it very difficult to drink. Just imagine trying to eat a plate of chips in space. Like those drops of water, they'd soon be floating around the spacecraft. This was the spacecraft which took the astronauts down to the moon. It was called the Lunar Module and nicknamed the Eagle.
4 forward. 4 forward, drift into the right.
The Eagle landed on the part of the moon called the Sea of Tranquility. It had only 30 seconds of fuel left.
Contact light. Okay, engine stop. We copy you down, Eagle. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
6 hours after landing, Neil Armstrong, one of the astronauts, became the first man to walk on the moon.
It's one small step for man.
He said, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Minutes later, Buzz Aldrin joined Neil Armstrong on the moon.
So, can you answer this question? In what year did Apollo 11 go on a mission to land a man on the moon? Now, don't worry. Just like in your test, you don't have to remember the answer. You can go back to your reading booklet, and we can look at the film again.
In 1969, Apollo 11 was sent on its mission to land the first man on the moon. 3 astronauts were sent on that historic journey.
So, what year was it? (1969). Okay, so next question. Write down one advantage of weightlessness and one disadvantage of weightlessness. Back to the film.
On their journey to the moon, they had the strange experience of being weightless because there's no gravity in space. People and anything that's not securely tied down floats around. Weightlessness did come in handy when they were trying to move heavy objects around, but it did have its problems, particularly when it came to eating and drinking. Without the effect of gravity, water doesn't pour, it just floats about in a globule, making it very difficult to drink. Just imagine trying to eat a plate of chips in space. Like those drops of water, they'd soon be floating around the spacecraft.
Did you spot the answer? Let's see if the English team can.
Do you know what an advantage is?
An advantage is that you can do something in space that's with your weightlessness, and a disadvantage is that you can't do it properly, that you're trying to do it.
Can you think of an advantage then? Can you find an answer?
Food and drink.
Food and drink. Is that an advantage or a disadvantage? Let's go back to the film to check.
Without the effect of gravity, water doesn't pour. It just floats about in a globule, making it very difficult to drink. Just imagine trying to eat a plate of chips in space. Like those drops of water, they'd soon be floating around the spacecraft.
It's a disadvantage that you're trying to eat, but the food and water just moves about everywhere. And an advantage is that it comes in handy when they're trying to move heavy objects around.
And another question. What was the nickname of the lunar module?
This was the spacecraft which took the astronauts down to the moon. It was called the Lunar Module and nicknamed the Eagle.
What was the nickname of the lunar module?
Eagle.
Where does it say that?
The spacecraft which took the astronauts down to the moon was called the Lunar Module and nicknamed the Eagle.
OK then, just one last question. Who was the first man to step on the moon?
6 hours after landing, Neil Armstrong, one of the astronauts, became the first man to walk on the moon. He said, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Minutes later, Buzz Aldrin joined Neil Armstrong on the moon.
Buzz Aldrin.
That's an easy mistake to make. It does mention Buzz Aldrin in the film, but was he the first man to walk on the moon?
Minutes later, Buzz Aldrin joined Neil Armstrong on the moon.
So if you join Neil Armstrong, who was the first person on the moon?
Neil Armstrong.
Like the questions which ask for facts in your reading test, the answers to all those questions were in the film. So, in your test, always remember to go back to the text to check your answers. Now let's get back to your question.
OK, write down 2 facts from the text which show that spider silk is very strong.
OK, so what do you need to do?
Go back to the text.
Right.
And skim read till I find the bit I want.
And what is it you're looking out for?
The bit about how strong the spider's web is, that's when I start to read carefully.
OK, so skim read. Why don't you have a go at skim reading too? Here's the information about the spider's web. Read quickly, skim read, through the text until you get to the bit where it talks about how strong the spider's silk is. In your test, you can keep going back to your question to make sure you remember what you're looking for. So we'll keep the question up on the screen. Here's a bit about how strong the web is, so that's where you stop skimming and need to start reading carefully. Can you find the fact that shows how strong the spider's silk is? So, what's the answer?
I found one answer. It says it's as strong as steel thread, and I know steel is very strong.
That's good, so write that down. Notice, for this question, there are lots of lines to write on for each fact, so you know that you need to write a phrase or a sentence, not just one word. So, what have you written?
We know that spider silk is very strong because it says in the text that spider silk is as strong as steel thread.
OK, so that'll get you 1 mark. But remember, this question is asking for 2 facts, so what about the other fact?
I can't find it. It's not in this bit of the text.
No, it isn't. You see, the facts that a question asks for might not always be next to each other in the text. So what can you do?
Read on.
Go ahead, then. And why don't you, too? See if you can find the other fact that shows how strong the spider's silk is. The question will stay up on the screen, too, to remind you what you're looking for. Did you find it? Did you?
I think so. Is this it? It can hold 1,000 times the spider's own weight. Sounds strong to me.
It certainly does, and that's just the phrase you needed to answer this question. So write it down.
OK.
Well, that's the end of our programme on finding facts from factual writing. So, let's check what we've done. With questions that are asking you to find facts from factual writing, don't rely on your memory. Go back to the text to find the answer. Read the question carefully and look for clues, like page numbers, that will help you find where the answer is. Skim read to find the important bit, then read carefully. And if you want to practice this at home, why don't you get together with a friend or someone in your family and ask them to ask you questions on any factual texts that you might have at home, perhaps a magazine or even the back of a cereal packet. But remember, it's not a memory test. You're finding answers from the text. There are also our books and our interactive Revisewise website to help you make the most of what you know when you're preparing for your test.
The next programme is about improving the grammar and style of your writing.
To help you with your Key Stage 2 English writing test, we're going to look at improving the grammar and style of your writing. So, what's the problem?
Well, I've just written this sentence and, well, it sounds okay, but I wonder if it could be better.
OK, why don't you read it out?
OK. Tom and Simon went into the cave to find the chest of gold, and Tom and Simon found the chest of gold.
Right, yes. It makes sense, but it could be improved. Improving the grammar and style of your writing is important because not only will it make it easier for people to read what you've written, but it will get you extra marks in the test. I think using some pronouns could help your sentence. Pronouns can go in place of nouns in a sentence. Watch this and count how many times it mentions Alice and the book. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by Alice's sister on the bank and of having nothing to do. Once or twice, Alice had peeped into the book Alice's sister was reading, but the book had no pictures or conversations in the book. Could you hear how repetitive that sounded? Did you count all the times Alice's name was mentioned? I counted 4, and 3 times it mentioned the book. What that story needs are some pronouns. Count the number of Alice's and the books this time. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank and of having nothing to do. Once or twice, she'd peeped into the book her sister was reading, but it had no pictures or conversations in it. This time, there was only one Alice. The rest of the time, Alice was replaced with a pronoun, either her or she. And there was only one mention of the book. Everywhere else, the book became an it. There are still some nouns at the start because it's important to make sure that the reader knows who the she or her or it is. Otherwise, it can be very confusing.
How are you getting on?
What? Oh, I think I've fixed it. Just needs a good thump with a mallet to get the water started. Trouble is, it's a two-handed job because I'll need to hold this down. Could you give me a hand?
Sure. What is it you want me to do?
Right, you take the mallet. Now, when I nod my head, you hit it.
When you nod your head, I hit it.
That's right. OK. Oh.
So, you see how pronouns can really improve the style of your writing, but you always need to make sure that the reader knows who or what the pronouns are referring to. A pronoun could be me or you.
Or it could be us, or him, or her.
So let's get back to your sentence and try and replace some of those nouns with pronouns.
Well, in my sentence, I repeat Tom and Simon, and I repeat the chest of gold. So, I could replace the second Tom and Simon with they.
Yeah.
And I could replace the second, the chest of gold, with it.
Right.
Then my sentence becomes, Tom and Simon went into the cave to find the chest of gold, and they found it.
Excellent. That sounds loads better, and you've remembered to use the nouns at the beginning of the sentence to avoid any possible confusion.
But won't I make a mess of my writing paper if I change it like this?
Not at all. If you decide there are some nouns you want to replace, just cross through them and write the pronouns beside or above them, like this. Don't waste time trying to rub things out. As long as it's clear what you mean, you won't lose any marks. You'll actually gain marks for improving your writing.
Well, I've just read this sentence. Well, I thought it was okay, but it's a bit boring, really.
All right, then read it out.
Okay. The knights rode into the forest.
Is that it? I see what you mean. Someone reading that wouldn't have any idea about what the forest looked like or how the knights were feeling. Don't worry, you just need to put in some descriptive words, adjectives and adverbs. Have a look at this.
A cat. What kind of cat? A big stripy cat. What, like my tiddles at home? No, no. A wild cat. A jungle cat. A tiger. Right. So what about it? What about what? What about this tiger, man? What do you mean? Well, what's it doing? Doing? Well, it's moving, isn't it? Moving. What, running rapidly? Sneaking slowly? Jumping joyously? Or doing the okey-cokey? No, it's walking softly on its paws, looking out for danger. Ah, I see. Padding warily. Padding warily.
There were some great descriptions there. So has that helped?
Yes. I need to use some adjectives to describe the nouns and adverbs to describe the verbs. To say how, when, or where things are being done.
OK, let's have a go then.
OK. Next, the brave knights rode silently into the forbidding forest.
Wow, I wouldn't fancy being one of those knights, even if they are brave. Using adjectives and adverbs really brings a sentence to life so that readers can see what's been written about. Have a look at this. Captain Crimson, fearless space crusader, and Thomas are turning a rather dull story of one of his adventures into a real page-turner.
Have you seen this?
Not yet. Dad's only just finished it. Why, what's wrong with it?
It's dull. Dull, 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 dull.
You don't like it, then?
Look at this. Captain Crimson looked at the alien landscape in front of him. It was quite nice. Quite nice? Hi, I'm Captain Crimson, fearless space crusader, explorer of quite nice places.
Quite nice doesn't really tell you very much. It's not very descriptive. Thomas and Captain Crimson have got their work cut out.
And listen to this bit. Captain Crimson was so happy, he was whistling a little tune.
Well, Dad's in a good mood, so he's made Captain Crimson happy too.
Happy? I'm Captain Crimson. I don't do happy. I don't do whistling, and I definitely don't do whistling little tunes.
That's right. When you're describing characters, you have to keep them consistent. Someone who's brave isn't going to suddenly become a coward.
Perhaps we better start again. Oh, I know. Why don't we draw the planet with two suns? That'd make it hot and sweaty.
Yes. Then we could say something like, twin suns shone down.
What about beat down?
Yes. Beat sounds even hotter. Twin suns beat down upon Captain Crimson and his crew.
We ought to say something about the heat.
Yes, OK, I know. The heat was utterly stifling and the air was filled with a vile smell.
That's good. Why don't we put stench instead of smell?
I like it. Stench sounds even smellier.
So the heat was utterly stifling and the air was filled with a vile stench. Oh, this place sounds revolting.
Why, thank you, short stuff.
It's good to try not to use words which are vague, like smell, in your story. The word stench lets the reader know immediately that the smell is overwhelming and horrible.
So, what did the landing party find while they were exploring this hot, smelly planet?
Giant vegetables.
I'm sorry, I thought you just said vegetables.
I did. giant rotten vegetables. That's why it smells so bad. They've beamed down into a giant's vegetable patch.
Oh, yeah! I could draw huge rotting cabbages and monstrous tomatoes with massive bite marks out of them.
I can almost hear Widget say, "Look at the size of those cabbages!"
I think we should see the giant next.
Then why don't you draw the crew wobbling about as the ground shakes and a giant boot comes into view?
OK. And what should we put for the story?
How about the landing party gasped as a big boot came into view?
Well, if he's a giant, big doesn't sound quite big enough.
What about gigantic?
Or immense?
Stupendous?
Mega monstrous!
That's not a real word.
No, but it sounds like you're describing something 2 galaxies beyond big.
You're right. Mega monstrous it is.
Here's the new exciting adventure of Captain Crimson. Look out for all the descriptive words.
The Adventures of Captain Crimson, Space Crusader. The Galileo's water tank had sprung a leak, and they were desperate to refill it. So they had made an emergency landing on an unexplored planet. Suddenly, there was a noise like thunder, and the ground began to shake.
What on earth is that?
I don't know, but whatever it is, it's heading this way.
The landing party gasped as a mega monstrous boot appeared.
It's a giant.
Let's hope he's friendly.
With a mighty roar, the giant's massive hand swooped down and snatched the landing party from the ground.
Hey!
Gotcha! What are you doing here?
We come in peace, my friend. We need water.
If you want water, you must fight me for it.
I'll take you on, but let my crew go free.
Captain, you are in serious trouble.
This is unbearable. You could die.
Let's not crumble under pressure. This is what we're going to do.
As the noble captain prepared to fight for their lives, his capable crew escaped to put his plan into action.
Hurry up, Tick. There's so little time to save the captain.
One stumble and you're mine. The nimble-footed captain was too quick for the lumbering giant.
Down here, big fella.
We'll get ya.
Missed.
As the landing pods flew in low, the captain put his part of the plan into action.
Take this and that, you big bully.
Wow! Ooh!
And that.
With expert skill, the crew hooked onto the giant's strawberry net.
Steady as she goes, men. That was an incredible bit of footwork out there, Captain. Thanks for saving us.
No need for thanks, Optic. It's all in a day's work.
All those words made every line of that story much more exciting. So, in the test, when you write your story, think about how you can make each sentence really interesting by improving your grammar and style.
OK. I can use pronouns, adjectives and adverbs to help me do that.
That's right. And don't forget, it's OK to make changes and cross out any mistakes. That's the end of our programme about grammar and style. So let's check what we've done. First, we learned that extra marks are awarded in the writing test for good style and grammar. We saw how you can replace repetitive nouns with pronouns. We saw how to use adjectives to describe nouns and adverbs to describe the verbs, to really improve the style of your writing and to help your reader to see in their mind exactly what you're writing about. And we saw examples of how to make your writing more interesting by choosing more interesting words. To check you've understood everything in this programme, why don't you take a look in your favourite books to find examples of pronouns, adjectives and adverbs. Or you can go over all this by winding the tape back and looking at bits of the programme again. There are also books and our interactive Revisewise website to help you prepare for your test.
The next programme is about punctuation.
To help you with your Key Stage 2 English writing test, we're going to look at punctuation. So, what's the problem?
Well, I finished writing my story and I'm waiting for the test to end.
So, have you checked it?
I've read it through.
And what were you looking for?
Looking for? Well, nothing really. I just read it through.
Well, reading it through is a good idea, but you need to be looking for ways to improve it.
But what do I look for?
Well, a good place to start is with the punctuation. Good punctuation makes good sense. Without punctuation, or with punctuation in the wrong place, no one can make sense of what you write. What's more, extra marks are given in the test for using good punctuation. So that's why in this programme, we're going to help you make sense of punctuation. And you're not the only one who has problems. Lots of people do.
I don't use commas and full stops because I don't know where to put them.
Like capital letters are supposed to be at the beginning of a sentence, but I'm forever putting them in the middle and at the end. Like full stops are supposed to be at the end of a sentence, and sometimes I would put them in the middle.
Sometimes after I've done my work, I look back at my work and I just can't see where I should put the commas in. It just doesn't hit me at all.
Did any of that sound familiar? Punctuation problems can really cause chaos. But what do sentences need to make sense? Yes, a capital letter at the beginning and a full stop at the end. That's the first bit of punctuation you need to check for. And it's just a small part of the punctuation that's missing from Sentence City. And Captain Capital is on his way to sort it out.
Not much sense in Sentence City right now. Where's Captain Capital?
Captain Capital and full stop. At your service.
Thank goodness. Captain Capital, Sentence City is in chaos. What can you do?
Don't worry. We're used to this sort of thing. We all know what we have to do. We're a team, see?
It's really easy to miss off a capital letter and a full stop by accident when you're writing your story. That's why it's important to always check for them before the end of your test. Look at this example. If you find any missed capital letters, just cross through the small letter and write a capital, like this. It's okay to cross letters or words out in the test. You won't lose any marks, and it's much quicker than trying to rub something out. There's still a capital letter missing. Can you spot it? There are no more sentences to start, but where else do you need them? What about proper nouns? They're special nouns which need capital letters. They're the particular names given to people, places, and things.
For example, there are many ships all over the world, but there was only one Titanic. That's why the word Titanic needs a capital letter. There are lots of icebergs, though, so that doesn't.
And all names of people, special places, or animals need capital letters, like Puddles the cat. And like before, if you need to add a capital letter, just cross through the small letter. Adding the missing capital letters and full stops does help your writing make sense, but there are more bits of punctuation you need to check for. Let's look more closely at this sentence. Purring loudly, Puddles her cat rubbed itself against her legs. There's something missing from that sentence. It needs something to break it up. While you think about what's missing, let's see how Sentence City is getting on. It might remind you of what's missing from that sentence.
That's put the words into sentences, but the long ones are unreadable. There are no pauses in them. Something's missing.
It's me! I said it's me, down here by your feet.
The comma. Now, can you break up the long sentences in Sentence City?
Of course I can. It is my job, you know.
So, commas break up sentences. They give your reader a space to breathe. Let's go back to that sentence. It can be really difficult to work out where to put commas in a sentence. The easiest way to work it out is to read it out. In your test, you can do that in your head. So, do you want to have a go? First, with no breaths.
OK. Purring loudly, Puddles the cat rubbed itself against her legs.
See how it doesn't really sound right?
Yes, it's a bit rushed. Perhaps if I put a comma before Puddles.
Right.
Like this. Purring loudly, Puddles the cat rubbed itself against her legs.
See, that sounds loads better, doesn't it? Is there any more room for any more breaths?
I know. Perhaps if I put 2 more commas, one before, one after her cat, like this. Purring loudly, Puddles, her cat, rubbed itself against her legs.
Excellent. That sounds really good. So, in this sentence, you could have 3 commas. One after the phrase purring loudly, and one either side of her cat. Another way of using commas is in a list. What's wrong with this? She had bought apples, oranges, pears, bananas, grapes, plums to make a fruit salad.
There are no commas. It should be. She had bought apples, comma, oranges, comma, pears, comma, bananas, comma, grapes, comma, plums.
Ah, well, that's nearly right. You've just forgotten one thing. You don't need a comma between the last 2 items on the list. You need to put in an and. So the final sentence reads, she had bought apples, oranges, pears, bananas, grapes and plums to make a fruit salad. That's the first 3 bits of punctuation to check for, and getting them right will really help improve your writing and your marks. The next bit of punctuation to check for concerns dialogue. Did you put any dialogue in your writing?
Oh, yes. I know that putting dialogue in my story is really important.
It is a good thing to do, but you have to think carefully how to write it. Can you see what's wrong with this? While you think about that, let's go back to Sentence City.
Sentence City is calming down, orders returning to the streets. But capital letters, full stops and commas can't keep it this way on their own.
Did you 2 hear someone speak?
Do you know, we're sure we did.
Oh, there she is.
Did Captain Capital send for you?
We came of our own accord.
You only have to open your mouth.
And we're there.
In fact, we're there before you open your mouth.
Too right you are. And we're always there afterwards.
You need to put speech marks around the words that are actually spoken in your story. There are some speech marks in this piece of dialogue, but not enough, and not all of them are in the right place. I'll tell you what, let's read out the dialogue. That's just the words that should be spoken. You can be Kim, and I'll be Susan, all right?
OK.
You're hungry.
So am I.
What do you want to eat?
Chips?
Speech marks have to go around the words that are actually spoken, like this. That dialogue's looking much easier to understand. But there's another thing you need to remember. You need to put each new person's line of dialogue on a new line. So we can cross through the word chips where it is and write it again on the line below. One problem with writing dialogue in a story is making sure your reader knows exactly how the dialogue should sound. You need to give your reader some clues. At the moment, they're missing from our piece of dialogue. To help us, have a look at all the clues in this sketch.
Oh, dear.
Cynthia?
Gerald?
Oh, Cynthia.
Oh, Gerald.
Well, a good cautious start there from both players, clearly shown by those two question marks. Gerald's trying a new tactic now, dribbling up the left wing. Oh!
Oh, Cynthia. Cynthia, Cynthia. I love you. I adore you. I need you. Can't you see that?
Oh, Gerald!
Oh, my goodness, two very impressive exclamation marks there from Cynthia. Now, Gerald's looking confused. Can he beat that?
Oh, please. Please, please.
So, you need to put in question marks and exclamation marks. First, question marks. At the end of any question, you need a question mark. Of course, you usually don't see it when people are speaking, but it is there. First, without the question mark. Gerald. And now, with. Gerald? Can you hear the difference?
The second time it sounds like a question.
Right. So, what about in our piece of dialogue? There's a question with no question mark. What do you want to eat? So you need to put the question mark in. It has to go before the speech marks, as the question mark tells the reader how to say the question. Exclamation marks can bring excitement to your writing. Can you see anywhere where you could put an exclamation mark to make this writing a bit more exciting? Where someone is exclaiming.
How about, so am I?
Right, so am I could become, so am I. By adding an exclamation mark, the reader knows that Kim is extremely hungry, not just a bit hungry. Like question marks, exclamation marks go inside the speech marks. Exclamation marks can make your writing much more exciting, but don't use too many. A few exclamation marks go a long way. So now do you understand how punctuation can improve your writing?
Yes, and my marks.
And how saving a few minutes for the end of the test is really important?
Yes, that way I'll have time to check my punctuation.
That's right. That's the end of our programme on punctuation. We found out that extra marks are given for good punctuation and looked at the punctuation you should check towards the end of your writing test. Every sentence needs a capital letter at the beginning and a full stop at the end. You also need capital letters for proper nouns. Give your reader some breathing spaces by using commas to break up sentences. And also use commas in between the items in a list. Check that your dialogue has speech marks and that they go round the words that are spoken. If you have any questions in your dialogue, always end them with a question mark. And use exclamation marks if you want to add some excitement to your dialogue. If you want some extra practice, you could copy out a paragraph from a book, missing out all the punctuation. Then, half an hour later, go back and look at what you've written. See if you can work out where to put the missing punctuation. Don't forget, you can go over all this by winding the tape back and looking at bits of the programme again. There are also books and our interactive Revisewise website to help you prepare for your test.
The next programme is about spelling.
In this programme, to help you with your Key Stage 2 English test, we're going to look at spelling. So, what's the problem?
It's my spelling test, so can you give me some help?
Of course I can. First of all, though, let's take a look at the spelling test. When you open your spelling test, you'll see a few paragraphs of writing with some gaps. The idea is that you put in the missing words, spelled correctly. This is what happens on the day of the spelling test.
Inside the booklet, there is a text with some missing words.
First of all, you listen as your teacher reads through the passage you've been given, including the missing words.
It's usually on the backs of houses or factories.
Then it's your turn. Your teacher slowly reads the passage again, giving you time to fill in the missing words.
It passes through some very beautiful countryside.
Here's a useful hint for when you're doing your spelling test. If you miss a word out, put a mark in the space. That way you won't write the next word in the wrong place. And you can always go back at the end and have another go.
That's fine, but what about helping me with my spelling?
OK, let's see if you can do better than this.
Your final round, Leslie. 30 seconds on spelling, starting now. Cough. No, I mean spell cough.
Sorry. C-O-F-F?
Incorrect. C-O-U-G-H. Through.
T-H.
Have to hurry you.
R-O-O.
Incorrect. T-H-R-O-U-G-H. Although.
A-L-T-H-O-W.
Incorrect. A-L-T-H-O-U-G-H. Enough.
It certainly is. Cough through, although, enough. They all look the same and sound different. It's impossible.
Lots of people have problems with spelling, but there are games, rules and tricks to help. Some words may sound different, but they look the same. You can make them easier to learn by grouping them together. Take those words. Cough, through, although, enough. They all end in O-U-G-H. Can you think of any more? Another way to work out how to spell some words is to split them up.
Regular spellings are great. They're so reliable. They look exactly the way you'd expect them to look. And they're easy to learn. Just split them up.
Fancy trying a few?
OK.
Horrid.
Horrid.
Similar.
Sim-I-la.
Satisfactory.
Satisfactory.
Easy.
Those are OK. But what about irregular spellings?
Irregular spellings are difficult, like all those words with silent letters that have been causing problems for hundreds of years.
The year is now 1577, and the people of England are locked in argument about how the English language should be spoken.
Here, I heard a cracking joke today.
If it's the one about the pig and the peasant, I'm not interested.
Are you ready? Knock, knock.
Oh, dear.
No, you're supposed to say who's there.
I know what I'm supposed to say, but you obviously don't. I think you're a bit behind the times.
Rubbish. A good knock joke is timeless.
It may be timeless, dear, but it's out of date. The K is silent.
Come again?
You don't pronounce the K. People haven't been pronouncing the K for ages.
People? What people?
Oh, you know, people. People who move with the times. People with their fingers on the pulse. People who keep pace with the modern world.
I keep pace with the modern world.
Rubbish. You still can't get to grips with the wheel.
That's not true. I can know everything there is to know about the wheel.
There you go again. One doesn't pronounce the K. These days it's no knife, knit, knock, knee, knuckle and night.
I see. And who said it's got to be no, knee, knife, what you said?
Nobody said. People just do it. People in the know, on the ball. It's what they call progress, dear.
It's what they call stupid, that's what it is. I've a good mind to write a letter and complain.
Since when can you write?
Well, I can't. But it's the principle of the thing.
Now, writing is a different matter. I have heard from that woman who lives at the end of the village. You know, the one who sits in the window writing so that everyone can see. She says one still writes the K.
Oh, one does one?
So she says.
So, one can write it, but one can't flipping well say it. That's ridiculous. It's confusing.
The modern world is confusing, precious.
Oh. Knickers.
Actually, saying the silent letters in words isn't so silly. It can help you remember them. Over to our English team for some more examples.
Surgeon. Surgeon. S-U-R-G-E-O-N.
Gnome. Gnome. G-N-O-M-E. Wrestle. Wrestle. W-R-E-S-T-L-E.
Wren. Wren. W-R-E-N.
Biscuit. Biscuit. B-I-S-C-U-I-T.
Why don't you have a go at it?
We're right. We're wrong.
That's it.
Bustle. Skizzers. We're wriggle.
OK, I think we've got the idea. Spelling rules can help you remember spellings. Like I before E, as in believe, except after C, as in receive, or before a silent G, as in wait. Here's our English team with a few more helpful rules.
If you know a root word, you can often add a prefix or a suffix. For example, play, full, television.
Or care less and unusual. But don't forget this.
The Y is changed to I when you add a suffix such as est and ly to help you remember things like handy, handiest and busy, busily.
That's right. Or happy and happiest.
Take off the E and add ing, for example, hope, hoping.
Or bake, baking.
To make plurals which end in a Y, change the Y to I and add es, unless the letter before the Y is a vowel. For example, strawberry, strawberries, chimney, chimneys.
And monkey, monkeys.
Words that rhyme often have similar spellings, for example, deer and fear.
That one's often true, but you have to be careful. Some words sound the same, but have different spellings, like bear and bear, or fair and fair. Rhymes or sentences can help you remember spellings. How about this one?
I remember necessary because of 1 cup and 2 sugars.
Or this one. Big elephants cry and upset smaller elephants. B-E-C-A-U-S-E. Because. You have a go at making up some rhymes of your own. So, now to put these hints and tips to the test.
Concentrate now, Leslie. Hollow.
That's easy, rhymes with follow. H-O-L-L-O-W.
Correct. Knife.
Silent letters, knifey. K-N-I-F-E.
Correct. Difficulty.
That's easy. Mrs. D, Mrs. I, Mrs. F, F, I, Mrs. C, Mrs. U, Mrs. L, T, Y.
Correct.
So there are loads of good ideas to help you with your spelling. You feeling a bit happier now?
Oh, yeah. I remember writing some of those words in my school spelling book.
A spelling book. Now that is a good idea. A spelling book can be really helpful. Perhaps you have one. Put in the words you find difficult and then try and learn them. When it comes to learning words, remember LCWC. That's look at a spelling, cover it up, write it from your memory, and then check it. And keep doing it until you get it right. Whatever you do, the more you practice, the better you'll do. And here are some fun ways to do it.
These are the root words that don't change. Prefixes go at the beginning and suffixes go at the end. We're now going to play a game with prefixes and suffixes. Impossible.
Legal.
Able. Doable.
Ants. Attendance.
Television.
Extra. Extraordinary.
I'm playing hangman with my partner and I tell him the words and he's got to guess where to put the letters in the empty spaces. The word's excellent.
Right, can I have an
E there? And a T?
and
S there?
no?
And an N?
Word searches are another good way to check your spelling. Can you find the bear in there? So, what did we learn? For regular spellings, split up the words into syllables, like sim, ear, la. For words with silent letters, practice saying them, like knock and bustle and skizzers. Make up rhymes to help you remember difficult words, like necessary, 1 cup, 2 sugars. Keep a spelling book and look at it often. Now you can go over all this at home by winding the tape back and looking at bits of the programme again. There are also books and our interactive Revisewise website to help you prepare for your test. So, we'll let you get on with your test and you get on with your revision.